Over 1 million people around the world follow Wall Street veteran Mark Chaikin for his shockingly accurate stock market predictions, and he just gave them a dire warning. Mark says we're about to witness a historic stock market shakeup that could soon create devastating losses for investors who don't know what's coming. And as a result, you only have 90 days to move your money. You see, Mark spent 50 years on Wall Street at some of the most prestigious hedge funds in history, and he's been on Fox Business and CNBC countless times. But this is a financial story no one else is telling. And if you let this take you by surprise, you could be in for a world of pain. He explains everything in a brand new free report available at rollingcrash.com. He includes the name and ticker of a popular stock that could be directly impacted by what's happening as well. Mark warned of beloved pet brand Chewy before it fell 45%, tech company C Limited before it fell 66%, furniture company Wayfair before it fell 76%, social media favorite Snap before it fell 36%, and food delivery company DoorDash before it fell 65%. Mark even called the Amazon crash before the famous FANG stock fell 35%. So you'll want to avoid the stock in his new report immediately. Again, simply go to rollingcrash.com for your free copy of this new report. Hi, this is Daniela Cambone. Welcome back to the Daniela Cambone Show. My guest today, Edward Dowd, a founding partner over at Phinance Technologies, a global macro alternative investment firm, and the author of Cause Unknown, The Epidemic of Sudden Deaths in 2021 and 2022. There's no shortage of controversy wherever Edward is. I've been looking forward to speaking with you. Welcome to the show, Edward.
Thanks for having me on, Daniela. Great to be here.
So I know we have limited time today, but I'm going to try my best to cover, aliens, the ongoing banking crisis, and central bank digital currencies. Where to begin? Let's talk with your main thesis that you've been talking about, that you think by 2025, we will see way more consolidation in the banking sector, so much so that we may only be left with 6 banks. I bring this up because Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen coming out now saying, and not too long ago, she was saying the banking sector is healthy, it's fine. Now reversing course, pivoting, saying consolidation may be coming, folks. Thoughts on this, Edward?
Well, at the time I made the prediction, she was saying everything's fine. It's not fine. Unfortunately, we've had 14 years of basically zero interest rates. So banks, did what the banks do. They rode the yield curve. Deposits, they paid zero to the depositors, and they invested out along the yield curve at 2-3% out many years. And so with the Fed raising 5% on the short term, they're upside down. The yield curve is inverted, and they can't because of the margin squeeze. They can't pay depositors a competitive rate. So all the money is leaving these banks to go to money market funds, where the Fed allows the money market funds to do reverse repo transactions and get 5% overnight with no counterparty risk. So before COVID and before the interest rate hikes, there was $3 trillion in money market assets. There's now $5.5 trillion and growing. So there's been what we call a disintermediation of the banks. This happened in the S&L crisis when they raised interest rates then as well. So the same thing's going on, but on a larger scale. Again, most of these banks were ill-prepared. Silicon Valley Bank obviously was the first one to go, then First Republic. There'll be many more consolidations. It's just inevitable.
Does this change the course at all? We're speaking ahead of the much anticipated Fed meeting. And does this change the course at all for the Fed? The debt ceiling now kicked down the road till 2025. Janet Yellen's comments. Does this change their course of action here, Edward?
Well, so what's interesting is we're starting to see a kind of a disagreement amongst some of the Fed governors. Some are saying we should pause. It's all, Powell will be the one leading the charge here, and they may do another 25 rate hike. If they do that, it's a disaster. They should. The Fed funds forward curve is telling us that they need to cut rates. The bond market is screaming for rate cuts. So the market is telling the Fed, you've made a policy error. So if they hike again, it'll probably be the last one. If they pause, then we know they're even more frightened than we think. They're looking at unemployment. Unemployment is not what they should be looking at. We have a thesis at our firm that the vaccines have caused the labor pool to shrink. So they're looking at the wrong metric, and they're gonna make a policy error.
Interesting. You say even a quarter percentage point could cause disaster. Others would argue, but it's only a quarter percentage point, Edward. What could it really do?
Well, it's the signal it sends, and also you have to understand there's a lag on monetary policy of about 12 to 18 months. They started this ferocious rate hike in February of last year, and we're coming into the second half of 2023. We're going to start feeling the real effects of the monetary tightening. Our early cycle indicators, economic cycle indicators, are showing a recession in third and fourth quarter, and we also have for the first time since 1930, the money supply is measured by M2 as year-over-year growth minus 5%. That hasn't happened since 1930. So the liquidity in the system is going bye-bye. And when the Fed is continuing its QT and tightening, the Treasury now with the debt deal is going to be issuing about 1.5 trillion in Treasury debt.
Right.
That's going to be a liquidity suck out of the markets, because what's been going on for the last 6-7 months is Yellen has been drawing down the Treasury general account. That's stimulative. So when they issue bills, it'll be withdrawing liquidity from the markets.
I also want to talk to you about the drama we're seeing in crypto land here. Obviously, the SEC cracking down with a 1-2 punch on Binance and Coinbase. Bigger question for you, Edward, is the timing of this all, right? With so many central bank digital currency projects being rolled out in pilot phases, we have Fed now coming out. What do you make of the timing of all of this?
Well, the SEC, at the time that the company went public, said that they have no authority over the crypto and said it wasn't a security. Now they're pulling a 180, so they're throwing out their rule book. So it seems to me the system is gearing us towards, when we're in the depths of the recession, towards introducing a CBDC, central bank digital currency. It'll probably be tied to a universal basic income. We've said that in our most recent inflation report to entice people to accept it. And bank consolidation will also help usher in a CBDC. So the system wants a CBDC. I'm opposed to it because the technocratic control over our lives is scary. And I don't think, as much as they would like to assure us, they're not going to do that. Once you have that power, you take advantage of it.
I always like countering my guests to that point, because I've had folks not afraid of CBDCs coming on saying, well, they're already tracking us. We're already using plastic. They already know everything you're doing with your debit card. Who uses cash anymore these days? What's your counter argument? Why are central bank digital currencies so much more terrifying than what we have today?
Well, because it links everything together. It digitizes the currency. Right now, we have cash, and you're able to make transactions, if you like, anonymously. And cash in the system, they don't like, because there's a lot of black market stuff going on where they can't tax it. So it's total tax control. Additionally, the head of one of the dignitaries from the Bank of International Settlements about a year and a half ago told us, in his own words, that the great thing about the central bank digital currency is its absolute control over what you do with your money. He said it. And so you can envision a time when they can enact social policies. Let's say they don't want meat because of climate warming. You have a meat quota. You go to your cash, your supermarket. You drop down your meat, and the person says, "I can't ring it up," because they'll have that information. They'll know how much meat you bought that month, and you won't be able to ring up your meat. It's total control.
When you say the system wants it, what's the system for you? Is it the Fed? Is it government? Is it a deeper layer? And how quickly is it coming?
There's going to be, in the depths of the recession, in Q3 and 4, and we're predicting deflation in Q1 of 2024. There'll be a lot of economic chaos, and that's when they'll introduce it at the maximum amount of fear. And it's basically the collapse of the monetary system. I mean, we've had the Federal Reserve was enacted in 1913, and then we got world reserve currency status in 48. So we've had 78 years of this, and the system needs constant growth, credit creation, and we're kind of at the end of it. The dollar has been exported to all the four corners of the world, and mathematically, it just is at an endgame. So the system would like to sit atop the new system. So that's why they're doing this. And at the same time, you can create incredible amounts of social control. And wouldn't that be nice if people are going to be in economic turmoil? And we have AI coming, which will displace a lot of people. The robots are coming. So there's going to be a huge portion of the population that's going to be unemployed. So this is if I was running the show, this is what I would do.
And because we're keeping things so light here, Edward, let's add aliens to the mix. And I want to bring it back to a tweet that you had in May. You said, things are so ridiculous right now, it wouldn't shock me to see an alien visitation on the eve of nuclear war to unite the globe. Curiously, our new overlords are in support of a CBDC and carbon taxes. So on the note of aliens, because I know you've been tweeting a lot about this, a whistleblower says he handed over classified evidence proving that a secret government program has been recovering spaceships and aliens for decades. What is happening, Edward?
Well, look, if the system is imploding, you can't take the, if you're a central banker or a politician, you can't take the blame. So you need to create distractions. And oh, by the way, an alien threat is a government spending bonanza. And they need to create, money creation is debt creation at the same time. So they need to spend to keep this thing going. So wouldn't it be great to have a threat that we all unify around, and then we need to spend forever to counter this threat? And then you solve your deflation problem instantly. So I'm so cynical that I joked that they might float this idea, and here they are. And this is a Pentagon whistleblower, and aliens mysteriously appear on the scene right as the stock markets are about to roll over and we're going into a deep recession. So I just find it curious.
Wait, do you think there's an actual alien?
No, I don't. I don't believe. I mean, no.
So so creating more of a crisis to justify spending more than the pandemic.
Yes, and by the way, I find it very curious that Speaker McCarthy and the GOP betrayed their base and basically offered a deal to Biden where there was no cap. So all they did, this was a cap in time, not price. And we suspect the reason they did that is because they were pulled aside and told, we're going to need the flexibility to help right the ship when the economy goes down. So when the economy goes down and unemployment goes up, usually there's tremendous deficit spending. So I find it very curious that there's no cap. And I think we're all being misled. And it is what it is. This is just beyond everyone's control. And the system is, kind of at its expiration point, in my humble opinion.
In terms of sectors are there any sectors that you're seeking refuge in terms of investments?
Well, look, I don't want people shorting the market and day trading. If you just want to protect what you got, I've been recommending since the stock market peaked in 22 in January, take some of your investments and go to cash. Cash is a position, and cash is what we call dry powder. You're earning 5% if you go into a government money market fund and or do Treasury Direct and roll 3-month T-bills. And then do what Warren Buffett does. Warren Buffett has a huge treasure chest of cash, and he'll be buying when there's panic in the streets. So why can't the little guy do that? That's just the psychology of it. People at the most maximum amount of fear will want to sell everything. You have to fight that fear. And when you feel like you want to vomit, you step back into the market and you buy some of your favorite companies back. I'm not going to recommend how much of your portfolio you should allocate to cash, but that's the only investment advice I've been giving.
U.S. dollar, de-dollarization. Is it coming to a theater near you, or are the BRICS nations gaining momentum, just a lot of talk and not enough action?
The system is such that the dollar is king still. What's different this time is that the BRICS are openly discussing what they used to talk about behind closed doors, because we have a weak administration and they see the weakness, so they're taking advantage of it and they're publicly speaking. The dollar is not going anywhere. In fact, the way the system has been created, when you create debt and deflate the dollar goes down. When there's a deflation and bankruptcies, and money supply goes down, you have a rise in the dollar because there's less dollars. So there's the euro dollar markets, there's 15 trillion in dollar denominated bonds overseas. And 90% of all FX transactions, the 7.5 trillion a day, are still done. The other side of the trade is the dollar. So the dollar system, if it fails, will fail up, meaning it will destroy the rest of the globe before it destroys us.
You've been very vocal on Robert Kennedy Jr. Does he have a shot here?
Yeah, I'm the co-treasurer of his campaign. He wrote the foreword to my book. There's an emerging trend I've been talking about. This called truth and integrity. There's been very little of it from our leaders, and he is, as you know, very controversial, quote unquote, spreading conspiracy theories, which are true in my humble opinion. And I'm backing him. I'm not, I don't agree on every one of his policies, but his biggest policies are freedom first, freedom of press, freedom of speech, and medical autonomy. Because if we don't have those, we have all the other issues are kabuki theater.
What's one policy you don't agree with him on? You said there was a few, but what's the number one for you?
He's coming around on climate change. I think climate change is a scheme. He actually admits now that he's an environmentalist, and I think environmentalism is okay. You go after polluters, the corporations. You don't go after the individuals and say every one of us has a carbon footprint and need to be taxed. You don't put it on the people, you put it on the corporations. Yeah. That's where he's coming to. He's now turned on guns. He says he's not going to take anyone's guns away because he realizes that an armed citizenry can push back tyranny. So he's coming around.
Edward, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on, and I'll come on again when we have more time.
Absolutely. We'll bring you back. I know the folks are going to be like, why didn't you have more time for Edward? He had a small window. I took it. We'll have him back. Don't worry. He's coming back. Save those comments.
I'm going to Australia. I'm going to try to help the Australians and spread the truth down there.
Love Australia. Well, enjoy that trip. We'll get you back when you're back. And we hope you enjoyed this episode. In the meantime, don't forget to sign up at danielacomboni.com to stay on top of it all. That's it for me. Thanks for watching.
Opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the contributor and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of Stansberry Research, its parent company, or affiliates.